Chord Theory 2. What is a seventh chord? In this tutorial, we'll look at the structure of the major seventh, the minor seventh, and the dominant seventh, which is the one we just call the seventh. If you're new to guitar theory, or you've tried some lessons in the past and found them difficult to understand, then you'll need some background knowledge. And with a little bit of background knowledge, these lessons will be far easier to follow. At the very minimum, you need to know the major scale and the minor scale. And for this lesson, you really need to know the Mixolydian scale. And the 1-octave version will be fine, but it would be better if you could learn the 2-octave versions. And because it's useful to know these, as well as some other background knowledge, I've created a playlist with all of the lessons in that you need. And I've put a link to that playlist down below in the description. And this also includes the lesson Guitar Chord Theory 1. I've also created a web page at www.ebooksforguitar.com where you'll find a downloadable PDF ebook of this information and a free printable fret map which you might find useful. And you'll find that information by going to the website and clicking on the lessons and then looking for the link to Guitar Chord Theory. Right, that's all the background information covered. Let's get on to the first lesson. The structure of the major seventh chord. The major seventh chord isn't the most common seventh chord you'll come across, but I think it's got a rather pleasant, kind of haunting sound, demonstrated here by going between the F major seventh and the E minor seventh. As the name suggests, to derive the major seventh chord, we use the major scale. And for this demonstration, I'll be using the C major scale. And we start by using a C major chord, or if you prefer, we find the C major chord using the triad of the C major scale, which is the first, third, and fifth note of the scale. And as you can see here, using the C major scale, we get a C as the first note, an E as the third note, and a G as the fifth note. And these are the notes that make up a C major chord. But hopefully you are already aware of this from the first lesson on chord theory. Right, once you've got the C major chord, or the C major triad, in order to build a chord, you then need to add the seventh note of the C major scale, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So the complete structure of the C major chord would be the C major triad, C, E, G, and then the seventh note of the C major scale and the B. And if we work this out from a C major chord, we just have to find a way of playing a B. And the easiest way of doing this is to remove the first finger from the B string, which removes the C and exposes the B. So the notes in this chord now are C, E, G, B, E. So we've got the complete triad and the seventh note, which makes this the C major seventh chord. An important takeaway from this lesson, and a reminder of previous theory lessons, is that whatever shape the chord is, as long as it's got these notes in it, it's still a C major seventh chord. So you can have a C major seventh chord that's a completely different shape, but as long as it's got these notes in it, it's still a C major seventh. Now, this same theory applies to all major seventh chords. However, remember that the name of the scale you use is what determines the name of the chord you produce. So in this example, it was a C major scale, so it produced a C major 7th chord. Let's take a look at the minor 7th chord now. The structure of the minor 7th chord. To produce a minor 7th chord, we're going to use the natural minor scale, or the minor natural. It doesn't matter which order you put it in. For this example, we're going to use the A minor natural scale. And to find the minor 7th chord, we use exactly the same principle as we did to find the major 7th chord, but using the minor scale. So the first thing we need to do is either find an A minor chord or find the triad of the A minor chord, which again is the 1st, 3rd and 5th note of the natural minor scale. And again, as we did previously, we then look for the 7th note of the scale. So the triad of A minor is A, C and E. And the 7th note of the A natural minor scale is the G. And to demonstrate this, we can take an open A minor chord, and then we have to find a way of playing the G. And there's actually two ways of doing this. The most obvious way is to place the 4th finger in the 3rd fret of the top E string, and this creates your G. So when you strum it, you have an A minor 7th chord. However, you could also play the G by removing the 3rd finger from the 2nd fret of the G string. And now when you strum the chord, you're playing an open G. Now, whilst these two chords sound different, they are both valid A minor 7th chords. And this is just two ways of playing the A minor 7th chord. There's actually several ways of playing the same chord. And what makes it the A minor 7th chord isn't the shape, it's the notes. As long as it contains an A, C, E and G, it will be an A minor 7th chord. Right, let's take a look at one more 7th chord. The structure of the dominant 7th chord. And these are easily the most common 7th chord you'll come across. And you don't find them written down as dominant 7th very often at all. However, whenever you see any chord, just A7, G7, D7 or whatever, that you can assume is the dominant 7th chord. Just so you're aware of it, there is another method for teaching this particular chord theory, and that is to use a major scale, and then for the 7th note they use a flattened 7th or a 7th that's been dropped by a semitone. But I find this method confusing, so we'll be using the Mixolydian scale because it's easier and makes far more sense, and it'll also help later when you're learning to write your own tunes. Okay then, the structure of the dominant 7th chord is exactly the same as the major 7th and the minor 7th chord, but this time we use the Mixolydian scale. So firstly, you can either take a major chord, or you can take the triad from the Mixolydian, that's the 1st, 3rd and 5th note again, and then you add the 7th note of the scale in, and they're the notes you need to create a dominant 7th chord. And for this example, I'll be using a G Mixolydian scale. And the triad of the G Mixolydian scale are G, B and D. And the 7th note of the G Mixolydian scale is an F. The notes then in a G dominant 7th, or a G7th as we'll call it from now on, are G, B, D and F. So we can create a G7th chord by taking a G major chord and then replacing one of the notes with an F. And again, the obvious way to do this is to remove the 3rd fret from the top E string and replace that with the 1st fret on the top E string. And this will leave us with G, B, D, G, B, F, which is your dominant 7th chord. And as with the previous examples we've looked at, it's the notes that are important and not the shape. So as long as the chord contains the notes G, B, D and F, it'll be a G7, and the shape isn't important. So you can play the G7th, and in fact any 7th chord, in multiple ways. Hopefully this tutorial's given you a basic idea of the theory behind the 7th chord. However, don't worry if you don't understand it. You don't really need to. But if you want to understand it, you can go through the playlist again, and watching it a couple of times will make it more clear. And understanding a bit of basic chord theory can be really helpful when you get to the point where you want to write your own tunes. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, or other guitar related videos, please like, subscribe and hit the bell icon, and then you'll be notified when I upload new videos. You'll also help to support the channel so I can keep making new videos. And if you'd like to take a look at the lessons and short courses I've already made, you'll find those at www.ebooks4guitar.com. And finally, thank you very much for watching.